The juniper tree. Also see the almond tree from the Brothers Grimm's fairy tales. German fairy tale published in 1812, containing themes of child abuse, murder, cannibalism, and biblical symbolism. Let's see, first edition, Kinder und Hausmarken. A wealthy and pious couple pray every day for God to grant them a child. One winter, under the juniper tree in the courtyard, the wife peels an apple. She cuts her finger and drops of blood fall onto the snow. This leads her to wish for a child to be as white as snow and as red as blood. 6 months later, the wife becomes gravely ill from eating juniper berries and asks her husband to bury her beneath the juniper tree if she dies. A month later, she gives birth to a baby boy as white as snow and as red as blood. She dies of happiness. Keeping his promise, the husband buries her beneath the juniper tree. He eventually marries again, and his new wife has a daughter named Marlinchen. In some versions, Marlene, Marjorie, or Anne Marie. Sounds like Mary symbolism. New wife loves Marlinchen, but despises her stepson. She abuses him every day, claiming she wishes Marlinchen to inherit her father's wealth instead of her stepson. One afternoon after school, the stepmother plans to lure her stepson into an empty room containing a chest of apples. Marlinchen sees the chest and asks for an apple, which the stepmother gracefully offers. However, when the boy enters the room and reaches down the chest for an apple, the stepmother slams the lid onto his neck, decapitating him. She binds his head with the rest of his body with a bandage and props his body onto a chair outside with an apple on his lap. Marlinchen, unaware of the situation, asks her stepmother for an apple. Hearing no response, she is forced by her mother to box him in the ear, causing his head to roll onto the ground. Marlinchen profusely cries throughout the day whilst the stepmother dismembers the stepson's body and cooks him into a blood soup. Blood pudding, black pudding for dinner. Maybe the origin of blood pudding. She later deceives her husband by telling him that his son stayed at the mother's great uncle's house. So the husband unwittingly eats the blood soup, lovely, during dinner and proclaims it to be delicious. Marlinchen gathers the bones from the dinner and buries them beneath the juniper tree with a handkerchief. Suddenly, a mist emerges from the juniper tree and a beautiful bird flies out. The bird visits the local townspeople and sings about its brutal murder at the hands of its stepmother. Captivated by its lullaby, a goldsmith, a shoemaker, and a miller offer the bird a gold chain, a pair of red shoes, and a millstone in return for the bird singing its song again. That reminds me of the millstone hung about the neck of all those who should injure or hurt a child from the Bible. And the red shoes speak for themselves. The bird returns home to give the gold chain to the husband while giving Marlinchen the red shoes. Meanwhile, the stepmother complains about the raging fires within her arteries, revealed to be the real cause of her anger and hatred towards her stepson. She goes outside for relief, but the bird drops the millstone onto her head, killing her instantly. Surrounded by smoke and flames, the son, revealed to be the bird, emerges and reunites with his family. They celebrate and head inside for lunch and live happily ever after. Interesting story. So this is the legend of the juniper tree. Motifs of cannibalism, death, and food. Some argue the juniper tree cues from the short story of Hansel and Gretel. Following the death of the main character, the mother, attempting to cover the death, chops him to pieces, turning him into food or candy. Food and death. Apple symbolism, being lured with an apple, millstone to kill the mother, used to grind corn. There's a song. The song the bird sang to the city. My mother, she killed me. My father, he ate me. My sister, little Marlinchen, gathered together all my bones, tied them in a silken handkerchief, laid them beneath the juniper tree. Quit, quit, what a beautiful bird am I. Very interesting story. Personifications of the devil. This goes on to talk about different Grimm's fairy tales. All right, so that's the juniper tree. Juniper tree is what they make gin out of from the gin berries. So let's take a look at the history of gin. The Dutch manufactured Juniper, and the English called it gin. Let's see, many people think it came from England or Ireland. It actually came from the Netherlands, 17th, 18th century, especially around Amsterdam. Calling it Juniper, distilling grain-based malt wine with spirit infused with juniper berries. Gin was branded as a mainstream alcoholic beverage. The 18th century. Gin gained popularity in England. Everyone was permitted to make their own gin and encouraged the production of regional spirits. Gin production in England skyrocketed as a result of rising import taxes on alcoholic beverages. Mixing the ingredients in a bathtub due to England calling it bathtub gin. It was inexpensive, easy to make. Cheap cereals used to distill the alcohol were combined with turpentine oil, sulfuric acid to dilute it. The demand for gin increased 47 million liters in 1733. Alcoholism was the consequence. The term mother's ruin was created when the raw spirit spread misery throughout London, causing an increase in crime, prostitution, blindness, and death. Between 1729 and 1751, the government issued 8 successive gin bills, or gin acts, to control gin consumption, in an effort to prevent the downfall of English society and the rise of alcoholism. The prices increased once more as the quality increased. Gin's reputation was protected in England, and the epidemic came to an end at the end of the 19th century. Very interesting. The rest of this looks like commercials for gin. So the reason I started looking into the juniper tree is because they grow all over out here in Colorado. I made my own gin. And I started thinking about the connection of the word gin, spirits, and the jinn of Muslim lore. I'm wondering if the tale of the jinn is that spirits or demons, which are jinn, possess individuals through different means, intoxicating states, drugs, alcohol, and then use their body. Because if the jinn are what they tell us and they are disembodied spirits, they're searching for body. Some legends say they live in trees, they live in plants, but basically they're living inside of anything in this realm that they can get inside of so that they can experience having a body and whatever they're looking for in that. And obviously, the body of choice is a human. So that would pay off for it would explain what was happening with the crime outbreak when gin came out, why it's outlawed in a lot of religions. Although I'm sure in low doses it has medicinal effect, but anything in excess. So let's read the gin from Wikipedia. Like humans, they are accountable for their deeds, can be either believers, Muslim, or disbelievers, depending on whether they accept God's guidance. Let me start over. The jinn, also romanized as jinn with a D or anglicized as genies, are invisible creatures in early pre-Islamic Arabian religious systems and later in Islamic mythology and theology. Like humans, they are accountable for their deeds, can be either believers, Muslims, or disbelievers, kafirs, depending on whether they accept God's guidance. Since jinn are neither innately evil nor innately good, Islam acknowledged spirits from other religions and was able to adapt them during its expansion. Jinn are not strictly Islamic concept. They may represent several pagan beliefs integrated into Islam, assert a strict monotheism, and a Muslim concept of Tawhid. Islam denies all affinities between the jinn and God, thus placing the jinn parallel to humans, subject to God's judgment and an afterlife. The Quran condemns the pre-Islamic Arabian practice of worshiping the jinn or seeking protection from them. Although generally invisible, jinn are supposed to be composed of thin and subtle bodies. They can change at will. Their bodies are called ajsam. They would favor the form of snakes, but also appear as scorpions, lizards, or as humans. They even might engage in sexual affairs with humans and produce offspring. If they get hurt by someone, they usually seek out revenge or possess the assailant's body, calling for an exorcism. Usually, the jinn do not interfere with humans, but live in their own societies structured as tribes, similar to those of pre-Islamic Arabian tribal systems. Individual jinn appear on charms and talismans. They are called upon for protection or magical aid, often under the leadership of a king. Many people who believe in jinn wear amulets to protect themselves against the assaults of jinn sent out by sorcerers and witches. A common belief holds that the jinn could not hurt someone who wears something with the name of God, Allah, written upon it. While some Muslim scholars in the past had ambivalent attitudes toward sorcery, believing that good jinn do not require one to commit sin, most contemporary Muslim scholars associate dealing with jinn with idolatry. Very interesting. Etymology and translation. Jinn, meaning to hide or to adapt. Some interpret the word meaning literally beings that are concealed from the senses. Cognates include the Arabic majnun, possessed or generally insane. Insane. Jannah, Garden of Eden, Eden or heaven. Janine. Jinn is properly treated as a plural. John. I wonder if there's a connection to Jane is John, Jane. The origin of the word jinn remains uncertain. Term jinn to the Latin genius in Latin. Jinn, also genes, humans' genes. Syncretism during the reign of the Roman Empire. Tiberius and Augustus disputed. See, the anglicized form genie is a borrowing of the French genie, also from the Latin genius. Translations of 1001 Nights from the French. I thought that was Arabian. 1001 Arabian Nights. Where it had been used owing its rough similarity in sound and sense further applies to benevolent intermediary spirits in the contrast to the malevolent spirits called demon and heavenly angels. In Assyrian art, creatures ontologically between humans and divinities are also called genie. And if you look at this thumbnail, the character is holding what looks like opium plants in his left hand with wings, and most likely a jinn character there. All right, let's look at some pictures. I had the idea that the Aladdin story is directly related to these jinn. And you've got this little guy here with a giant character with chains around his wrists and arms. Something smoking on this plate down here. I would suggest he is smoking something, probably opium mixed with some psychedelic drugs and a religious ritual to summon these jinn. Flying jinn carrying a human, 14th century manuscript. You've got a furry, Sasquatch-esque looking character here with chains around his wrist again, just like the Aladdin genie, carrying a human who looks like he is asleep or high out of his mind. And all these faces around here, probably other jinn. I'm sure this plant has some significance. And I wish I could read this at the top here. This is another Djinn with a blue skinned Djinn around him. It chains around the wrists again. Hard to see what they're doing. Got a tiny one on his back. Looks like a couple of Djinn meeting with a higher one, the Black King of the Jinns, 15th century. So he's the king of the Jinns. I've heard there's a hierarchy. Got horns. He's breathing fire. Chains around his neck. Chains around his wrist. This guy looks like blue skinned dude. Weird feathered face. This guy has a snake. The offering a snake to the king of the Jinn. Pink wings. Freaky. This guy looks like a black skinned man. It's almost blue black with some kind of dog headed looking creatures around him. This is supposed to be Jinn as well. These are Muslim art motifs. Here's a Jinn coming down from above with his buddies poking out the side, affecting someone while they're sleeping. Maybe the origin of the succubus and the incubus. Here's the red-skinned Djinn. Reminds me of the poem with the she prayed for a child of red skin to be born from the juniper tree. Guy up on the hills looking down. Very weird. A group of devils, Djinn. He's holding this man's arm who clearly doesn't want to be involved. Chains around the arms and wrists. Hermaphroditic, or this is a female. As there's breasts. Holding what looks like a cow. Horns on the head. Clearly giant. That's terrifying. Okay. So this man is three-headed, eating men. So this could be symbolic or this could be real because they talk about the Nephilim ate humans. The giants on earth ate up everything on the earth and then finally ate humans. So if the Jinn spirits are the disembodied Nephilim, and if you follow the Nephilim are clowns theory, then there's clown motifs here. Clearly, regular people here. Are they feeding these people to them? So these guys look like regular people standing here watching this occur. There's the sleeping Djinn, sleeping man being carried by the Djinn. Too hard to see. This guy reminds me of Krampus. Again, he's got the chains around his wrist. Aladdin, he had to be wished to be freed. The man had to wish him to be free. Dawat Namaha. Maybe some kind of Djinn guy here. His little buddies around him. Holding something. He holding a plant. This is some kind of psychedelic plant he's holding here. Bizarre. Bizarre hair as well. Whatever that is. It's a hat, crown, the king. Old illustration of Iblis Djinn. Reminds me of Totem Pole. Definitely reminds me of Totem Pole. Djinn and chthonic ideas. Got another circus-themed body Djinn here. Multiple patterns running all over him. A snake coming down around his legs here. And he's doing something. Something's being exchanged between him and the blue-skinned Djinn. I can't even tell what that is. But it looks like they're fighting over something. Guy's got fire coming out of his mouth. This guy has fire coming out of his head. Stepping on his leg. Background, these women look like they're gathering something in their pots. Like they can't even see these guys, right? Horns. Can't tell if they have chains around them. They may be free Djinn. He has bangles around his legs, ankles. What other genie images we have here? This guy looks like he is laying on the ground. Satan's refusal to worship Adam, depicting the rebellious angel Iblis or Satan as the human figure on a prayer rug. This guy, Satan is refusing to worship Adam? What? That is bizarre. I haven't heard that before. I'd probably refuse to worship Adam too. Can humans see Djinn? Okay, here's some Quran quotes. Verily he in Qabiluhu, his soldiers from the Jinn or his tribe, see you from where you cannot see them. This verse indicates that the jinns cannot be seen in their true form by human beings. The only time they are visible to human beings is when they shapeshift and take form of another human being or an animal, and there are examples of this mentioned in some narrations from the time of the prophet and his companions. Yeah, and these Muslim mosques look like a psychedelic trip. It looks like they understood what was going on, whatever that realm is. That's the Black King of the Jinn, probably. This one is incredible. You have the Jinn here who has the chains all over him. So he's a bound Jinn, and he is this guy around him or woman. Looks like he's reaching for a dagger on his left there in his belt, and looks absolutely shocked and surprised to be seeing this green fire-eyed Jinn that is enormous, twice his size. So it looks like this guy has been doing some kind of ritual. He's got some kind of devices around him. Are these smoking devices? Are these altars? Food, drink, 2 candlesticks here. You have this white line running across the bottom and a white line across the top. So is it denoting different realm, like a third and a half or something like that? I don't know, but it looks like this guy is shocked. So did they smoke enough of whatever they were doing or do the ritual long enough and then realize that this Jinn has been there feeding off of their energy this entire time, and now it's too late to stop because his arm is wrapped around the guy, holding his wrist, holding him back, stopping him from grabbing whatever is in here, probably a ceremonial dagger. And in the background, You have a black snake climbing the tree, white snake climbing the tree. Twin tree symbolism here. And these black ducks swimming in the strangest lake of all time. This is like a square white body of water with ducks swimming in it. No idea. Curious what these plants are growing as well. This guy's a classic winged god holding some kind of animal here. Is this guy a Djinn? Different class of Djinn? Enormous turban. These people, are they dressing like the gods they revere? I don't know. I'm curious. But onto the Aladdin's lamp. A lamp. Is this lamp some kind of smoking device? It's like an oil lamp. And it's weird. It looks like it's made to pour something out. And in the story, he gets lured out. Aladdin gets lured out to the desert by Jafar dressed as an old man. Because Jafar wants the lamp, but only a pure of heart can go into the Cave of Wonders. The lion, or is it a tiger, that's in the desert, goes down in there, gets Aladdin, whose name is Allah and Din. So Allah, Jinn, potentially. The symbolism of God and the Jinn in the same sentence. Anyways, this man, pure of heart, lures him out here, tells him to go down and only take the lamp. Goes in, grabs the lamp. The monkey grabs something else too, right? So it all starts crumbling around them, and then the carpet saves them, flies them out. And if you listen to Kalindi Aye, he is a magic mushroom guy, and he talked about, he's a psychedelic guy in general. He talked about the carpets having symbolic meaning. So they would make these carpets, these rugs, out of different plant materials and psychedelic dyes, and they would create them as maps. And that's why they hung them on the wall, because you would take these psychedelic substances and you would stare at this map that your ancient ancestors made. And you look at it and you would go to that place inside of the carpet. You would fly the magic carpet and come out into a realm your ancestors had built. You show up and your ancestors are there, or whatever this rug is designed for. Maybe you want to go meet the Jinn, or you want to do XYZ and go through these different places. Basically, the rug was there to save you and help you map out this realm, right? So the symbolism there is Aladdin is saved by this psychedelic map rug that flies him out of the tiger that's crumbling into sand around him. He gets the lamp, and the lion says, "The diamond in the rough," I believe, right as it's crumbling into the desert. He lands there, gets away with the lamp, and then the genie comes out of the lamp. You all know the rest of the story. Basically, I think this lamp could represent multiple things. Some people say it represents discovering your own power inside of yourself and awakening the chakras, and then achieving these things through those means. The other way would be this is some kind of a psychedelic device used, and right here, this thing is smoking lamp. So you could smoke something out of this Aladdin's lamp, right? And when you smoke it, genie pops out, or the Djinn, or the disembodied Nephilim, or the fallen angels, these spirits who have broken off from whatever faction of the creator. And they are trapped in this Djinn state, trapped in this realm. Aladdin lures him out of the lamp. He has the bonds around his wrist, so he's got to do what he tells him to do, right? And it's a story as old as time, right? I mean, he wishes for all of his carnal desires, whatever he wants to be rich, he wants to be an emperor, he wants the girl, he wants this, that. And at the very end of it, the genie wants to be wished to be free, right? But what's interesting is the genie doesn't have a say about what's going on, because Jafar gets the lamp at one point, and the genie apologizes. He's like, look, man, I got to do what he tells me to do. So he then goes on to build this empire, and this evil, the smoke is all looming around, and then let's pull up a picture of Jafar. And ultimately, Jafar gets drunk with power, and he's like, I want to be as powerful as a genie, right? And he gets trapped in the lamp, which is classic. He gets trapped in his own lamp, and I can't remember what happens. Does he get thrown out in the desert or something? Anyways. Yeah, here it is. Here's him. There's your space propaganda. And it's just like the Nagas. Right? Let's pull up the Nagas. The Nagas are the snake people. And Nagas is Sagan backwards, which I thought was Carl Sagan is character. But yeah, here we go. Here's the Nagas. Look at these guys. These guys, they look like Genie, right? Are these the same characters? Yeah, look at this guy. Nagas. Very interesting. And I mean, who knows if these things are all evil? Or if some of them, I mean, something I've seen in life is nothing is all evil or all good. It's good and evil. Some of these guys could be benevolent, some could be malevolent. Look at this character wrapped in the Lord Naga. Whoa. Very interesting. Secret of the Nagas. And it's very interesting. The snake motif and Kundalini energy rising, and they could mean different things. I'm not saying I got it all pinned down. This is just an idea I had that smoking these different drugs could be what leads to an interaction with these genies, right? It's all right here. And you got Aladdin and his girl, rubbed the lamp, smoked the drug, monkey buddy. There's the ancient psychedelic carpet map. Boom, there's the genie, right? And what's interesting is at the end of the movie, when the genie's free, he goes to Disneyland. Absolutely bizarre. Look at this guy. Another Djinn. These are opium smoking devices. Are these Aladdin's lamp? It's a full-on party right here. These guys. Opium ceremony. Smoking pipe, 1400 AD. Very interesting. There it is. The potential connection between the origin of Djinn, Juniper tree, the fairy tale, cannibalizing children, and connection between the Djinn and another thing that's very interesting is I saw a video on I think it was Sufi Muslim sect, and this guy was talking about the Mandela effect, and he said that they've known about the Mandela effect a long time, which is why they memorize the Bible or the Quran, their holy book. And he said that the Jinn can change things in the past, which will change things in the future. But if you have things memorized, they can't affect your memories. So if you trust your memories over the bizarre world we live in, then you can counteract what these characters are doing. So maybe it is, maybe it isn't. That's what Muslims have to say on it. They're saying that the Jinn are causing the Mandela effect. The fisherman and the Jinn. Very interesting. Look at this guy. Holding a sword, chains all over him, shot out of the ocean. Look at the mountain in the back. Right? Mount Meru. An old poor fisherman casts his net 4 times a day. One day he goes to the shore and casts his net. First he catches a dead donkey, then a pitcher full of dirt, then shards of pottery and glass. On the 4th and final try, he calls upon the name of God and casts his net. When he pulls it up, he finds a copper jar with a cap that has the seal of Solomon on it. The fisherman is overjoyed since he could sell the jar for money. He's curious of what's inside the jar, moves the cap with his knife. Plume of smoke comes out in the jar and condenses into an Ifrit, a more powerful, malevolent Jinni. The fisherman is frightened, although initially the Jinni does not notice him. The Jinni thinks that Solomon has come to kill him. When the fisherman tells him that Solomon had been dead for many centuries, the Jinni is overjoyed and grants the fisherman a choice of the manner of his death. What a gift. The Jinni explains that for the first 100 years of his imprisonment, he swore to enrich the person who frees him forever, but nobody freed him. The 2nd century of his imprisonment, he swore to grant his liberator great wealth, but nobody freed him. After another century, he swore to grant 3 wishes to the person who frees him, yet nobody did so. After 400 years of imprisonment, the Jinni becomes enraged and swore to grant the person who frees him a choice of death. Fisherman pleads for his life, but the Jinni does not concede. The fisherman decides to trick the Jinni. He asks the Jinni how to manage, I guess it's Genie, how he managed to fit into the bottle. The genie, eager to show off, shrinks and places himself back into the bottle to demonstrate his abilities. The fisherman quickly puts the cap back on and threatens to throw it back to the sea. The genie pleads with the fisherman, who begins to tell the story of the wazir and the sage, Duban, as an example of why the genie should have spared him. Duban is a wise sage who is summoned to King Yunnan to cure the king of his terrible leprosy. Duban cures him by having him play polo with a club tipped with medicine. The king is very grateful until a vizier tells him that if Duban could cure him that easily, he could also kill him just as quick. The king remains skeptical and the two exchange some moral tales. The king recounts the tale of King Sinbad, who accidentally killed his own falcon that was attempting to save him from being poisoned by vipers, while the vizier recounts the story of a vizier who carelessly goaded a prince into almost getting eaten by a gula during a hunting trip. Sidebar: Sinbad pops up oddly a lot around this genie thing, and also in the Mandela effect. And I think there's also like a particle accelerator at CERN that is called Sinbad or something. I can't remember. Anyways, I just find it interesting that the Mandela effect about the movie where he played a genie kind of links into the Djinn, the genies, and the Mandela effect. Anyways, after the story, the Djinn pleads for his mercy and swears to help him in return for being released. Fisherman accepts the bargain and releases the genie. Genie then leads the fisherman to a pond with many exotic fish, and the fisherman catches 4. Before disappearing, the genie tells the fisherman to give the fish to the Sultan. The fisherman does so and is rewarded with money for presenting the fishes. However, every time a fish is fried, a person will appear and question them, and the fish answer. When the fish are flipped in the pan, it will be charred. Awed by the sight, the Sultan asks the fisherman where he got the fish and goes to the pond to uncover their mystery. When he reaches his destination, the Sultan finds a young man who is half man and half stone. The young man recounts his story as the story of the ensorcelled prince. Prince had been a famous monarch for his country and had married his cousin whom he loved. However, his cousin did not return his love, and each night would elope with a slave. She would drug the prince and leave the city gates to sleep with the slave. The prince found out about this by overhearing one of his slave girls talk about it and followed his wife out of the gate one night to find the slave and kill him. He struck the slave in the neck but only wounded him and left before finishing the job. His wife spent the next 3 years in mourning and built a tomb for her still loving lover. The prince put up with this for a while, but eventually had enough and yelled at her that the slave was never coming back. Realizing he was the one who did this, the wife cursed the prince and the inhabitants of the city. She turned the prince into half stone and the inhabitants into fishes and placed them in a giant pond. The Sultan hears this and then assists the prince in his liberation and revenge. He kills the slave and then takes his place covered in bandages in the tomb. He speaks in a thick accent to the wife when she arrives. He tells her if she changed back the prince and the inhabitants, he would be cured and they would pursue their love once more. She does as he commands, and when she comes to greet him, the king pulls out a sword and cuts her in two. The king and the now cured prince become close friends, and the fisherman who first found the fish is rewarded with his son being appointed in Sultan's treasurer, and the Sultan and the prince marry the fisherman's 2 beautiful daughters. Well, there you go. That's the ensorcelled prince. Interesting. So he's fisherman. Some Jesus symbolism there, right? Fishing. Not sure exactly what that means, but all right, I'm going to wrap it up. I'm sure I'll touch back on this, but that is basically a touch in the genie legends. And anybody who has any more information or any ideas about the connection between clowns, jinn, genies, Aladdin, anything along those lines, send an email to libraryofpropaganda@gmail.com.